Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this September 18th, 2024, a Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in. What can I say? Things are really heating up in this war now. And, I don't really expect things to cool down. I'm not seeing it. It's multiple fronts. It's not just Ukraine and Russia and Europe, but it's the Middle East, and it's not happened yet, but it's over there around Taiwan in the South China Sea. That part hasn't really heated up yet, but believe me, it's there. It's ready to go, and that's multiple fronts, when you look at the powers of the East, the BRICS nations, North Korea is a nuclear nation, Russia is nuclear, China's nuclear. I almost said Iran's nuclear, but no, we can't say that yet. But there's a big, powerful bloc there. None of those four countries are weak. They're all very strong. And when the four block together, when they can create war on multiple fronts, how many fronts can NATO fight on? If they're involved in fighting in Europe, and then war breaks out in the Middle East, and they're involved in fighting in the Middle East, and then later, if war breaks out in the Pacific, it'd be like 3 different theaters of operation. How many men do they have? China, how many men does China have ready to fight? And Russia is mustering up more and more all the time. So you see where all this is going. It's irreconcilable differences that have an awful lot to do with finance. And when I say irreconcilable, I mean that, between East and West. How this is going to resolve itself, I don't know. But it's leading in a direction that's leading toward a major conflict between East and West, between the whole East and West, not just between superpowers, but between 2 different halves of the world. And so Putin is threatening World War III right now, and he is ready to, it says to right here in the Sun, it says he's ready to detonate a nuke. He's planning on detonating it up in the Arctic. And this could happen like any time now. It's imminent. It says he's all set to detonate a nuclear weapon in the Arctic region at any moment, it says. It has been revealed. Strong traces of radioactivity have been found along Norway's border with Russia. The Kremlin says it's fully ready to test nuclear bombs for the first time. No, so this is a test. It's a test site. But still, it's the first time that probably in a lot of the people on my channel's lives that there's been any tests. Now, when I was younger, they used to do some underground tests still. When I was just a young guy. But it's been a very long time since, and above ground tests, this is unheard of. We've never seen one go off since, I think the last one was in 1960? Before I was born. It's ready to happen right now. In Ukraine, well, let's just say that it's infuriating the Russians right now. This whole thing about striking deep inside Russia with NATO-built weapons systems. Now, Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, he says that Ukraine can strike deep into Russia with NATO arms, but it's got to come from the United States. Has got to give them permission. And there's political pressure coming on. This possibly part of the political pressure, part of it. There's probably more, political pressure coming on them to release these weapons to Ukraine and allow them to use them deep inside Russia. Now, Russia's already stated its case about what would happen if they use these weapons deep inside Russia. It says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Ukraine should be allowed to use these weapons to strike deep inside Russia, despite Moscow's threatening. It says this could or would draw Canada and its allies into a direct war. So the thing about it is will they or won't they? A few days ago, they were reporting saying they're going to do this. And then Putin come on. He said, okay, if you do this, it means war. All out war. Means war. Big time war. Not no bannering around the bush. Then they've kind of like stalled on this thing. This thing stalled. It stalled then. Evidently that statement frightened them. But the thing about that is if a statement's made like that, after a few days passes or a week or something, whatever amount of time passes, after a while they start to rethink the whole thing and they start to say, well, maybe we'll do it anyway. I just don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We're waiting to see now at this point. But what I say is there's probably a lot of pressure on them too. And there's also pressure on them not to. That's tentative. We're going to have to wait and see if they allow them to use those weapons. But why would they give them those weapons if they're not going to allow them to use them? If the plan is not to allow them to use them, why give them to them in the first place if they're not going to let them use them? I'm just wondering about that. That's my question running through my head. Just the fact that they're giving them these weapons, sending them these weapons. Could it be that Ukraine is going to start accumulating these weapons? Now, even without these weapons, just using drones, they've scored. They've scored big right now inside Russia. They have scored big. They hit some sort of weapons warehouse. And oh my gosh, they scored big. In fact, the explosion that went off, Ukraine, the explosion in the weapons facility in Russia, evidently is deep inside Russia. It created this thing that looked like a thermonuclear blast. That's what it looked like. And there's a picture of it right there. And it was an enormous, it just a stunning explosion. For all intents and purposes, the explosion itself must have been almost like, even though it was conventional explosion, it must have been almost like equal power to a small nuclear device. But they hit directly into the dump of ammo, evidently. And Russia was storing these. It says a large-scale Ukrainian drone attack on Russia triggered an earthquake-sized blast at a major arsenal in the Tver region on Wednesday, forcing the evacuation of nearby towns. You had to see the videos. I'm telling you guys, I can't play the videos on here because everything's copyrighted nowadays. As soon as you run something like that, I get a copyright mark. But I'm telling you straight up front, I've watched the videos of this thing, and this thing was absolutely massive. It blotted out the sun. It was like the size of the whole thing. It was, if you're standing there watching it from like 20 miles away, your jaw would drop open. That's how big this thing. It must have blown up a tremendous amount of ammo they had saved that they were going to use on Ukraine. It must have blown up unbelievable amounts of ammo to cause an explosion like this. It said NASA was able to pick up the heat sources from space. Does this tell you how big? Massive blasts are detected, and they picked it up on earthquake monitors. They've hit the major Russian arsenal. They've hit the mother lode Ukraine has. And this is going to absolutely... Now, the Russians are going to absolutely be beside themselves about this because they need ammo to fight this war. And there goes their ammo. Boom. They're going to be infuriated. This is conventional ammo that they're blowing up. Russia needs that to fight the war. The only other ammo that Russia has, if they get rid of, if they were, I'm just saying, if they were to lose all of their conventional ammo, what do they got left? Nuclear ammo is what they would have left to fight with. I mean, if they blew up, I can't conceive of them blowing up all the Russian ammo, but this was probably a huge chunk of Russian ammo gone. Now, I got so much to cover, guys. It's just, honest to God, this war is heating up, and it's hard to cover it all. It's exploding pagers. Have you ever heard such a thing before? Exploding pagers. They're discussing, I've been watching the shows about it, and they're discussing how did they do this, and I don't think they really completely know how they made these electronic devices explode. I don't think there's theories at it. They're trying to figure it out, how they made these things explode all simultaneously. But can you imagine in Lebanon, right? You're standing there, and all down your street, house after house after house, like a neighborhood or whatever in Lebanon or whatever, and all of a sudden you hear bang, 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 bang going off in all the houses down the block. And people come running out of their houses screaming and yelling after. Probably just about every second house. Bang. And another house, bang. Another house over there, bang. And it's like, what the heck? And people come running out of the house screaming with maybe they're holding their hand up in the air with their, like it's injured. Or worse. Down every street. Down every road. Every house. So like something like, I think it was like 2,700 explosions. Bang, 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 all over the place, here, there, and everywhere. And it begs the question. You have to start thinking to yourself, they don't really know how or what kind of explosive devices, or just what it was. They don't really know yet. I last night when I heard about that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had my cell phone in my pocket. Took the cell phone out of my pocket, laid it on the counter. I don't want it on me. I don't know. Maybe I'm being silly, but I just thinking that was last night before I heard any of the facts. I was just like, exploding devices? What the heck? And they don't know. Because they don't know what's causing them to explode. I mean, it could be some new thing. Who knows what it is? But it's probably that maybe during the manufacture or something, they slip something in. I don't know. So it's probably just those. I'm thinking it's just those devices that they were carrying were tampered with somehow, probably during maybe when they were at the factory or something, goodness knows, or maybe on their way to being delivered, or something, or somehow they might have got explosives in them somehow, some way. It was very clever and very ingenious. Not that I think it's good. I think it's bad, very bad, because it's leading the world into a new type of warfare that you just don't know. I mean, if they could infiltrate and do that, other countries could infiltrate us and do something similar. It's just leading to some place where this tit-for-tat of war could start striking home over here in the West when we least expect it, because they weren't expecting that. They just go home and they get their pager in their pocket just like typical day, and all of a sudden, bang, out of nowhere. And it could be anything. It might not be just pagers. It's when countries start to sabotage one another, what's the biggest vulnerability here in North America, as far as probably one of our biggest vulnerabilities, is the undersea cables that carry our internet. Now, can you imagine if they get in wars trying to cut those cables or something in World War III? Say World War III starts, say we get into World War III, and they decide they're going to start cutting cables. It's awful hard to stop them, because the cable, it goes from one shore to the other. If it's an Atlantic cable traversing the Atlantic Ocean, it would go from all the way from North America, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, through that trench in the Atlantic Ocean, up the other side, and all the way to Europe over there. Right? The cable. Thousands of miles long. Well, when you're on the ocean, you can only see about 10 or 20 miles, and off in every different direction. You take a boat, you go 10 miles offshore, or maybe 15 miles offshore, and you look like you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You can't see what's going on just on the shore 15 or 20 miles away. You can't see that. Right? So if you got a cable stretching across the Atlantic Ocean, they could be cutting it over there 100 miles away from you, and you're over here guarding it. Oh yeah, we're going to sit our ships right on top of it. Like to see them cut this cable. We got our ships right on top of it. They're not going to get at this cable. And 30 miles away or 40 miles away, they're cutting the same cable, and they don't even know they're cutting it. And, they got like I think it's like 150 of these cables. They got them everywhere, stretching across the ocean. Now, if they cut one cable, they can come in, they can reroute the internet through other cables. But there's a certain percentage of cables if they cut. Like say they cut 40% of the cables. It's too much to reroute. You can't reroute any longer, and the internet shuts down. The internet shuts down. You got to have that internet up and running to keep your powers. All the power plants are all connected to it, by the way, guys. And so the internet shuts down completely like that. And boom, your lights go out. You didn't know the lights are connected, because they've connected everything to the internet, to the blooming internet now. Ain't nothing gonna work. And if they can't get those cables fixed, say they're over here trying to fix one of those 6,000 mile long cables to get it running, they're desperate, right? Can't do anything. They can't do transactions. They can't do, and our system basically shut down. And so they're trying to fix it over here, and they're cutting it again over there. And besides that, how long would it take to fix it, even if nobody's going to recut it? You got free to fix it. It might take months to fix it. You have to get parts. And, where do the parts come from, this cable? Who manufactures the cable? Well, China's manufacturing the cables. Oh, no. Well, they're part of the Eastern Western Bloc, and the Western Bloc, once we get in war, they're not going to give us the parts. We have to build the parts ourselves to get the cable fixed. And how long is that going to take? Well, it's going to take another 3 months conservatively. That's 6 months. How are you going to deal with 6 months with no way of doing finance, no way of doing banking, no way of doing of making sure that your trucks get to market? You got all these trucks out there, and they used to have little books. The dispatcher's offices for these trucks and stuff was going to tell them, okay, you got to go to, say it's in the United States, you got to take this shipment of not all these food and stuff, and go to Publix with it. That's your end destination, okay? And we're from this warehouse, it's 1,500 miles, and they used to write it in the book. The guy was logged in, he's logged. Now they do all that logging online. The internet's gone. How long does it take to go back to the old system of books? It'd just be a massive confusion to try to go back to that. They've scrapped it. They don't even know how it used to work. These old booking operators and stuff, those all went back home on retirement and everything else, they're gone. They couldn't even tell the young guys how to do it. If the it would take months probably to reorganize and restructure all that. So in that period in time, in the months while they're waiting, while the power comes back on, when they get their trucks start to running again, because every internet's been down and everything, and they try to get everything running during that period in time, what are the people going to do? They're going to go mad. No groceries in the grocery store any longer. No power in the lights in the house any longer. This is see, back during World War II, we were so much closer to the earth, so when war broke out over there, they couldn't sabotage us that way. We didn't have any internet to sabotage. So now, they've done this over there, and they're gonna the war's probably gonna start up pretty soon here, because when you take people like, and you get, say it was your street, your community, and all of a sudden they're bang 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 in every house or every second house. People don't feel safe in their own home. I feel like, hey, if we don't get out and fight, they're going to kill us in our own homes anyway. Electronically, somehow or another. So of course they're gonna fight, Israel's right on to fight too, and they're gonna have this big war there too. So there's a second front, not just Ukraine. So the U.S. Coast Guard's now encountering these, like I just said on my show yesterday, I had them flying in around Alaska with the, but now they're encountering these Russian naval vessels too near Alaska. It's mounting up, guys. It's mounting up, and I don't see any relief in sight. These escalation. That's what it's doing. And maybe some sort of a shock or something might de-escalate the situation somewhat, but it's not going to resolve these irreconcilable differences between East and West that have to do mostly probably with the money and the world's finance and commerce. It's not going to resolve the underlying issues that's actually causing all these things, even if we do see a de-escalation. It's a bad situation in the world right now, and it is going to resolve itself, but I think that it's almost like the people of Earth here, when we had World War I, it didn't resolve itself until they got their belly full. Kind of like a hungry guy, he's going to go to the buffet. It's not going to get resolved. That hunger's not going to get resolved until he has his big pig out. And that's kind of the way the world gets, humanity gets for war. Generations come along, they forget how bad it really is. When they get their belly full of it, then they say, oh, never again. We'll never do that again. Until the next time. Until new generations are born, it's never went through the horrors. And then when they get their belly full of it, so it resolves itself. It resolves itself when everybody on Earth says, hell no, we don't want any more war. But on this side of war, they're all want vengeance. Oh, they did this to us, now we got to get back at them. And they don't learn that that's not the way to go until they've got their belly full. And then they don't want any more. They really don't want any more, It always reminds me of that movie that was that Gone with the Wind, and in that movie, at the start of the Civil War in the movie, They were riding around, yippee, the war started, yippee, yippee, the Civil War started, it started, guys, and they're shooting their guns off in the air, and they're all excited and happy. The war started, yippee! You know? A couple years later, after they had their bellies full of it, you know, and a lot of them were wounded, missing limbs and everything else, and the country was a mess after years of civil war. Then they weren't excited about it, so they were so glad. They're just as happy when it ended. Happier. Yippee, the war's over, thank God. You know? Why go into, why do that to yourself in the first place? You know? It's about as dumb as, I heard about this one guy, you know, not going to stray on the topic too much more, but I'm just going to say, I heard about this one guy. He decided he was going to put a firecracker on top of his top hat. He had a top hat, and he figured, well, you know, if it blows up, it'll blow up top of the top hat or whatever. So he put the top hat on his head, and he put the firecracker on top of the top hat, from what I understand. And he lit it. Well, the explosion was bigger than he thought. Suffice to say, it wasn't a good idea. He died. Other people have done stupid things like with fireworks. One of the worst I ever heard was, you know, I heard years ago, it happened a long time ago when I was just a kid, and they used to always tell us this story, and because it was a true story, it actually happened. Some kid put a bottle rocket in his mouth and lit it. Bad thing to do. But that happened when I was a kid. I heard about that story, and they used to tell us that story because they didn't want us to get hurt with the fireworks, you know, when we were kids. And we all, you know, kids just love firecrackers, you know, 4th of July and stuff like that, but they didn't want us to get hurt. Anyway, moving on, taking a look at our markets today. Silver is at $30.38. It's down 26 cents on the day so far. So it's doing that thing I told you, you know, where I said it's just kind of tread water. It's treading water until we got to get, where we got to get for us to really start to take off is get a few of these cuts under our belt. And by the way, guys, today's a big day. The Fed's at it. They're starting to cut again. I guess the cut's coming. Is it going to be 50 or 25? I haven't heard. But we're seeing the effects starting. Silver's at 30.38 today. Cryptocurrency today, we're watching Bitcoin at 59,442, so it's up a little bit. It's just under the $60,000 mark. Ethereum's at 22.99, and XRP's at 56 cents. See, when I say it's up, I'm looking at that 7-day. It's up 5% over the last 7 days. Okay, today in the last 24 hours, it's down 2.63% on Bitcoin. Yes, we're taking a look at our markets now, and we see the S&P 500 is down 4 points. It's at 5,629. The Dow Jones is down 43 points at 41,562. And crude oil's down 42 cents at 70.77. And taking a look at our bonds and rates today, you know, guys, the world's an unbelievable mess right now. I just think to myself, hey, you know, I really don't think that it's going to pan out the way people think. I really don't. One of the big drawbacks to it panning out the way people think is people, they think in their mind, nuclear war, the missiles are going to fly, all the cities are going to be big mushroom clouds and everything else. No, I don't think it's going to pan out that way. One of the big reasons why is these leaders, these nations and stuff, they don't want to die. And they're really in control. You're not in control. All the people out there, everybody watching my show, you're not in control. They're in control. They don't want to die either. And that's why I don't think it's going to pan out the way you think. It's not going to be the total Armageddon, nuclear, mad, mutually assured destruction and all that. I don't think it's going to pan out that way. I think that they're going to be more cunning in how they attack. They want to more of this stuff that's this asymmetrical stuff that's going to go on, but much larger asymmetrical stuff. More things like that pager attack. Things like that, but ingenious ways of causing mayhem in the world that you might not have ever even thought of yet. You know? The things that are straightforward and straight in front of you that you think's going to happen won't happen. Some other things will. You know, things you never expected. Like I've been pointing out on here, and I see it as one of our biggest vulnerabilities is these infrastructure. Our infrastructure. Just look at the major problems it can cause for us just if a highway is interrupted for a period of time, you know? Wasn't there a big ship that ran into a bridge not long ago on a major highway in the United States? And it can cause major disruption. Now, you just take one area and you cause major disruption. If you multiply that by a number of areas, you can cause a country unbelievable grief. And this is what's happening in Russia right now. They're causing major disruptions, the Ukrainians are, inside their country because they're at war with them. Now, right now, the gloves are not off between nations. And what I mean by that is they're not causing things that would cause major disruptions and stuff because it's not full-scale war. I'm talking about full-scale war here. I'm talking about when the gloves come off and it's all out, they're just out to get one another. Then they don't care where they strike, and they know at the same time that if they start using strategic nuclear weapons, it'll be all-out war, and they don't want that. I don't think they want that. They don't want to die, the politicians, like I said before, and that's probably the reason why. Is so they'll strike in more underhanded ways. And humans are genius. Just look at this attack with these cell phones and stuff. Not cell phones, but pagers. Just look at that. It's ingenious how they can strike or attack. I mean, you couldn't list all the ways, because if you listed all the ways you thought they could do it, they'll find even other ways that you never thought of. So there you go. And they're going to get into this. You might have to take care of yourself, because there's a time coming where if you're relying on the grocery store or you're relying on the government for everything that you need to stay alive, well, they might let you down severely, especially if they get in war. And getting right on the edge of this stuff, guys. I mean, everything is tentative now at this point, because we're getting so close to even the financial system itself having major problems, structural problems within it. And it looks like these major structural problems are going to start when the war starts. Everything's kind of... I absolutely know at this point, I can tell you that mankind's going to get through these problems and stuff and come out the other side, but in the interim, it's not going to be pretty. You know, because, well, 100.94 for the US dollar index. The dollar today is more or less going along sideways today, with a few dipsy doodles up and down. Aren't we the lucky ones to have to ride through all this mess? I don't be sarcastic very often, but I mean, that was kind of sarcastic. But this is what they call interesting times right now, and it's getting more interesting by the day. But it hasn't really, for most people out there, none of it's really struck home as of yet on a personal basis. I mean, unless you're listening from Lebanon, and then, man, it's starting to strike home. But a lot of us over here in the West, I mean, we're sitting like either maybe you're in the United States of America or you're here in Canada, and we haven't really been personally affected by this yet. But as it spreads out and as it fans out like a disease in the world, it's going to come to you. How? We'll be prepared for it, but it's going to come to you somehow or another at a certain point in time down the road. And I don't think it's all that far away, you know. I think it's looming. This show's getting kind of long, so thank you guys for listening to my show. You guys have a great afternoon. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.